Michael, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for making time to visit.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. So as you know, one entrepreneur to another, the first question I'm going to ask is, what are you working on today?
So just today's been an interesting day because I was in New York last week, so still a little bit jet lagged. So I get the opportunity to wake up super early without it being really hard. So I've just been working on proposals. So just like we're starting to work with a lot more tailored type of brands that need like very specific solutions. So it takes time where like I try to sit in with the team and just like build like a unique proposal. So I've just been like the quiet times of the morning, just like I'm spending time building those proposals.
What a great problem to have, right? To be busy writing proposals.
Yep.
So when I started conversations on retail 3 years ago, it was really all about this. It was about me sort of finding interesting people in the community. And I think we as humans, we want to be liked and we want to be respected and we want to be appreciated. But more than anything, we want to be known. And so I thought, so many of us are really known for what we do and so little about who we are. So I wanted to start this conversation by learning a little bit more about you, all the way back to your childhood. I always joke and say, I'm not really interested in what your favorite color was, but there are definitely things that happened from a very, very early point in your life that shaped you into the person that you are and the business person that you are and the family person that you are. And I'd love to just hear a little bit about your upbringing. Where did you grow up and how were you raised and what were some of your early interests?
Okay, cool. That's an interesting question. Funny enough, actually, I don't have a favorite color. I don't think I lean more towards almost any color. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I was born in Israel. I lived all around. I was born in Israel, moved to the States when I was 7, lived in LA for the first part of my childhood, then moved to Toronto where it was really cold, lived there for 5 years, moved back to LA, mainly just following my dad's job. He was like the head of the community. So moved to another community. After that, moved to New York, moved back to Israel for a year, and moved back to LA. So I've really been around. I spent a lot of my childhood, I guess, moving into, we're never in communities for so short, but moving into communities, getting really settled in communities and then leaving. And funny enough, people always ask me like, oh, isn't that it's so hard? Like, I really enjoyed it. I felt like it was always like, you get to kind of, you learn from like where you were, but then you get to like, you always like, oh, I wish I would have, done something different or build different types of friends. And so every kind of new place, get to kind of take what I learned and like, and do it again. So that's a little bit about how I grew up.
So were you in any of those places long enough to create connection? Where you've maintained relationships in New York and in Canada and the other places you've lived?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, LA obviously the most because I was in LA twice, and so most of my life's in LA now. But yeah, within like Toronto and it's like because like the 5 years I lived in Toronto, and because that like I had relationships, I built relationships, and I still keep in touch with some of the different people I met throughout. And then some people I don't keep in touch with, but we end up just recrossing paths. So it becomes interesting where it's like, I went to school with him or his cousin or this. So, yeah.
What were some of your interests and curiosities as a kid? And the reason I asked that is because you've been a part of a lot of startups. And so my first question, which I already know the answer to this, my first question is, well, did you come from an entrepreneurial family? And it was just sort of a natural thing, but you didn't really. You said your grandfather was a business owner, but it sounds like for all intents and purposes, you're kind of first generation entrepreneur. So what are some of your interests and curiosities as a kid that's sort of created in you, not only that desire to build something, but the tolerance for risk and not going a more traditional path occupationally?
So yeah, it's a great question. I think I always have been a builder. Like my parents always tell me that, but I've always been a builder. I always like building things. I always like doing things. I'm a bit creative, but also just love building. And I think it was like the love for building, but also the competitive nature in myself. And then also just growing up in, I guess, like very affluent communities, where it's like, I would see a lot of business owners and see a lot of really successful people. And it's like, I just, in me, I was like, okay, I really want to do that. I really want to I really want to be really successful. I really want to build something. And so that kind of started what like led me down like a hustle journey where it's like, start building, start doing whatever it is, make money and like start building on that. And then from there, just leading it to starting to understand because of like the nature of want to hustle and do something and always be busy. I think it started with really wanting to be busy. And through that, like you start doing some stuff. And then through there, you get more invested and understand more about how money works, how business works. And that kind of just led me down path where it's like I started exploring more and more things that were more down the path of doing something unique, creative, and like building.
Yeah. The best thing my parents ever did for me was allowed me, after much begging, they allowed me to take the neighborhood paper route when I was 10 years old. So I would run home from school and I'd deliver papers, and every other Friday I would knock on doors and collect, and I had that interaction with grown-ups, and the bigger I smiled, the bigger the tips were. And I realized some small degree of financial independence as a 10-year-old, able to buy my own toys and that sort of thing. It changed my life, like forever. It just, that little bit of an entrepreneurial experience, I knew right then and there that entrepreneurship was what I was going to do the rest of my life. What was your first experience that sort of touched against entrepreneurship?
That's interesting. I think, there was always odd kind of jobs here and there. But I think where it's like really led down the first real journey that I led down entrepreneurship was bookbinding. So in kind of my community, my school, it was this, everybody's using so many books and they start ripping and this and that. So it's like I started a bookbinding service where I would bookbind. And what I realized is I was always like doing a job here, somebody paid me $10 an hour or this or that. But with this, it was like a fixed rate of like, let's say it was $8 a book. And what I realized is the faster I got and the better I got at it, the more books I would get. And then it's like, I decide kind of how much really I make an hour, and then also how many hours I work and when I kind of do that. So that was kind of my first kind of understanding of that. And then I'm like, okay, I could do it for individual people, but once I get clients, which is like organizations I do their books for, now I have so much more work I could do, and they don't mind paying a lot, just how much I'm able to do and how good I'm able to do it. That's kind of what let me down. And I was able to like build like a good little business off of that in high school.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like, and that invigorated, I think, some stuff in me.
Yeah. How old were you when you started that bookbinding service as a hustle?
I guess I was like 14.
Wow.
Yeah, around 14 years old, I think.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about your university experience. When you started your studies, did you have an idea of what you would do occupationally when you graduated?
So interesting enough, I didn't go to college. After high school, I went to like religious studies for like a year. Studied like Talmud for like a year. So I was, it was in kind of program that was in Israel, and then but half the day I would work. I already had my business fully established by then. So by the time I always thought I was going to go to my aunt's the dean of NYU Dental, and for a while I always thought like I'm going to be a dentist. I don't know why I thought that, but I was like, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to want to have like a stable career, this and that, before I really led down the entrepreneur path. But by the time I since I built my business, my initial main business while I was in high school, by the time I left high school, I had a pretty established business. So I didn't go to college.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about that first legit business. What was it? What was what gave you the idea to start it? What made you, move forward beyond just having a great idea? Talk about that first startup.
Yeah. So in my community, there was these people that were selling online, and I didn't really know what that meant or how that meant. They were selling on Amazon. I'm like, okay, this is really interesting. I'm like, I'm hustling all these things. Like, just teach me what you do. So I kind of bugged them a lot, learned what they were kind of doing, and they were bringing in items, branding them, and selling them online. So I'm like, okay, let me get my feet wet. Started bringing in items. I actually started selling them on eBay because like Amazon seemed kind of complicated. A few months later, like, okay, we really want to do this legitimately. Me and my brother would every time in between breaks and after school, we would start looking into products. And we were really into fitness at the time. So we're like, okay, let's make a fitness product. We found a really unique type of workout gloves, and we're like, let's bring this in. And through that initial product, we just learned all the ropes of like, this is what we have to do. This is how we set it up. And that kind of led us down the path of like, we have a successful fitness product. Now let's build a fitness brand. And like, that's kind of, we started building off of that. We started bringing in more fitness items, started to build more of a legitimate brand. We started, and through high school, this is what I was doing, where every break after school, I went to a very intense school where we started at 7 in the morning and finished at 9 or 10 at night. So it was like really long. But during lunches, breaks, after school, we would really build this out. And we started building a successful brand online on Amazon. We started expanding it to other channels. We were doing photo shoots, video shoots for our items. We were bringing on influencers. Like we were building a real brand. And it was really exciting because I'm like, there's so much things we could do, so many different levers we could pull, so many different ideas that we could put in motion. So that was really cool. And that was already pretty established before I graduated. So
talk about some of your early learnings, some of your successes and some of your failures, and when you knew that it was a real business.
Yeah. So because we're fortunate, our first product already was doing pretty well. So I think our first product within a short amount of time was doing probably $75,000 in revenue a month. And when you're in I was probably in 11th grade or 10th grade at the time. It's like, wow, it's one product. We're doing, this significant revenue. Where I really, my real failures and my, what I started realizing like a lot more was because this opened up a whole new world. There was so much that could be done. I've had the approach of like, oh, let's try this, let's try this, let's try this. When what we had was working so well. So it should have been a lot more doubling down, and really building a lot more into that, because you really don't need a lot of stuff to work out to be really successful. You really, in my opinion, if you could really own a certain lane. So I think, it's something I still, I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with, but I think some people are fortunate enough they don't make the mistake as bad as early. We were making some of those mistakes and kind of learning from it. Everything leads to different things, which, cause you to, go down different paths. So it's interesting.
I spent the first 15 years of my own entrepreneurial journey exactly the same way. It seemed like everything we touched turned to gold. So we would start a business and it would be successful. And so instead of doubling down and going all in on that thing that was doing really well, we would take that success and try to apply it in a different model. And there was a little bit of success there. The problem was, while all the businesses were successful, none of them ever realized their potential because we were never singularly focused. And that was a lesson I had to learn maybe a little bit the hard way. But so talk about more about your entrepreneurial journey. What you did what did you do with that business? What did you do subsequent to that business up to the point of starting SellCord?
Yeah. So after that business, from there, we started a couple other brands with the same kind of theory, like let's launch them on Amazon and let's expand into a couple other channels after that. So we launched a brand in home that did well, and then we launched a brand in pets that was a little more challenging. So we were building those brands. From there, we were building out those brands. We were selling it on other channels, big focus on Amazon. We started running into a lot of issues with Amazon. Our accounts getting suspended, just a bunch of really annoying issues. And then from there, I met my business partner at a conference who he was extremely successful on Amazon. I had the number one product for 2 years. And he was like, I want to build a very legitimate brand. I was like, Amazon, there's a lot of products there. It's a great opportunity to sell product, but people just slapping labels on different products. Like I want to build really legitimate brand with really legitimate products. So we invested a lot of time, resources, and money in building out like a pretty revolutionary brand in the supplement space. From there, expanded that to national retail. So we're sold at CVS. We started on Walmart.com and got it into Walmart stores nationwide. Around that time where my own brands I started were actually doing pretty well on Walmart.com because we were running into a lot of issues with Amazon. Walmart.com was the only other channel that was really growing extremely fast. And I was like, what about if we take the same focus how we had it with Amazon, put it into Walmart and see what we could do there, because we had all these challenges with Amazon, and really saw there was so much success there because the platform was growing so much, but brands didn't have Walmart specific tailored strategies. And then with our other brand, we were able to do well and get that in stores. And we saw how much of emphasis Walmart was putting on .com and how much, programs they were investing in with Walmart.com. So, that's kind of what led me down that path to understanding that there's a really interesting opportunity with Walmart.com. It's growing extremely fast, but also there's a lot of revenue on the platform already. Brands, that were addressing Walmart.com and they were primarily on other channels, were basically didn't have Walmart specific strategy. Some of them were starting to sell, but weren't being successful because they didn't have the time also to spend on it. So that's kind of what started on SellCord, where it's like we could be an extension of brands teams. really understand what they're doing, take their products, and we already know there's demand for their products. They have strong products, strong brand. Expand them to Walmart. They could be the most aggressive, the most tactical and strategically advanced brands on the platform by leveraging a partner such as ourselves. So that's kind of like where the business was founded on. And from there, we've really expanded to like understanding how software in the space was built around Amazon, and then Walmart added on as like a nice shiny object, but weren't tailored around Walmart. And then, as we got deeper and deeper into it is where we started understanding that, the large 1P vendors have these really big challenges of what this new marketplace is causing, but also have a lot of opportunities with it. So how do they mitigate their risks happening in the marketplace? How do they leverage opportunities? How do they leverage the advertising opportunities? So there's so much there. And that's kind of goes on back to the focus topic where, that's when I started just focusing on Walmart. And from there, we've been able to build, like, I think the best systems, the best teams, the best processes, and everything that's just so tailored on Walmart.
Yeah. Well, let's unpack that a little bit. And people can see your full capabilities presentation on our platform. We're super excited to have that. But talk a little bit about your capabilities. Talk about your sweet spot, the kinds of companies that you're working with. Maybe give us some, without naming names, a couple of examples of what you've done for brands at the beginning stage, perhaps, or even growth brands that you've helped to optimize and accelerate. Talk a little bit about the specifics of your business.
Yeah, so there's really two main segments, right? So there's brands that do really well on other platforms, and they list on Walmart and they don't really have much success because they don't leverage the right programs and leverage them in the right way, and they don't have kind of a sort of time to focus on it. So we have one brand, amazing brand. We're actually putting out a case study on it, but it's called Simply Magic. Extremely successful on Amazon. And on Walmart, they weren't doing almost anything. And when we came on board, kind of noticed how like they have the right products, they have the right supply chain, they have the right capabilities. They're just not leveraging the programs in the right way and leveraging Walmart in the right way. So it became a lot to like, how do we optimize their catalog specifically for Walmart? From there, like building a really strong launch plan of like every brand has different launch tactics that make sense to leverage based on their margins, based on their category, based on the competition. So really getting a really good understanding of the market, and from there, understanding where the opportunities are and leveraging them and growing them to, 6 figures a month within like 30 days. And from there, just there's unlimited kind of scale opportunity. But then on the other side of things, we work with some of the largest, which is, I would say like a bigger part of our business. We work a lot with a lot of the largest, national brands that they all need different types of solutions, but they have a lot of capabilities internally. I would say like any brand, household brand, they have a bunch of reasons why they're your household brand. They do a lot of stuff right. Just it happens to be the platform is evolving really quick. And, they could use support a lot, oftentimes in certain areas of where it's evolving, where they don't have internal capabilities or they don't want to put their focus in those areas. So, a lot of times with those brands, there's different ways how we plug in, but usually it's like a very tailored approach to Walmart Connect with their advertising. That's much more brand centric in regards to like leveraging Walmart Connect where they get a lot more for what they're, so to say, spending. We take like a very shelf driven approach, like understanding each of the shelves of the categories and understanding where they could succeed well and where there's the best use of money, and really applying a lot that there. But then in those scenarios, a lot of those brands want to expand to marketplace. So sometimes we're helping them expand to marketplace. A lot of times they don't want to expand to marketplace. They want help making sure marketplaces and marketplace sellers aren't digging into their revenues and aren't affecting them. In some scenarios, they just want help maintaining that their catalogs are always high listing scores. So like we try to find plug and play solutions where like our added value could help so to say their full picture. So that's kind of how we work a lot with like national brands and how we plug in those scenarios. And I think because just being the Walmart's experts and exclusively focused on Walmart, we're able to really understand the Walmart offices for these brands, be able to really support them and be like a good tool for them, rather than just like an ad agency, like hand off advertising, hopefully does well, and not really in tune with the real goals they're trying to accomplish. So there's really two different segments of our business. There's pretty deep penetration in both of those.
Yeah. You alluded to this a moment ago, but it seems like over the last several years, it's gotten more and more difficult. It seems like Amazon has chased a lot of sellers away, where Walmart has been so welcoming not only in what they've said, but just in their consistency in the way that they operate. Walmart, I think, is much more predictable as a partner than Amazon has been. Talk a little bit about why now is such an exciting time for brands and sellers to be doing business with Walmart.
Yeah, I think why it's really so, everybody knows like it's really people at the center of Walmart. Walmart, it's an omni-channel, tech-powered, people-powered like retailer. It's just they're so focused on people being at the center of what it is. And obviously there's all this technology and there's all this other great stuff, but like it's people-powered. People are leading Walmart. Walmart invests in partnerships. They care a lot about their relationships. And you see the way they address marketplace and how the type of account management support brands get and how they're really integrated. So they're really treating it as a partnership. And I think why it's like right now, it's because the traffic on Walmart is growing and it's the second largest marketplace in the US. It's the fastest growing. There's so much uptick. So what's going to happen with that is there's more and more opportunity. So then brands start becoming more and more competitive, and brands start leveraging more products because it's more worthwhile for them. So I think it's when brands kind of expand off Amazon, it's like Amazon's a lot of risk for them. The margin gets shrink because of the amount they have to spend on advertising to continue kind of what they're doing. And then there's no real relationship there. With Walmart, these brands, when they come on board, Walmart really values their relationship. So they invest in them. There's a lot of incentives they give to these brands. And then further than that, there's Walmart's like an ecosystem where there's so many ways to get involved with them. And some brands come in on marketplace and end up getting, joining the 1P programs, getting the store. There's some brands start within store and then you get the doc. So there's just like, there's such a big environment that brands can kind of plug into.
Yeah. One of our very first conversations was about the communities that we host on the platform. We've got 16 of them now that are led by people that are very knowledgeable, but also very, very passionate. I always talk about Mike Grain, 25 years at Procter & Gamble and 10 years at Walmart, one of the country's foremost authorities on all things related to on-shelf availability. He leads the community where he brings like-interested people together once a month to participate in live conversations with folks from industry and from academia. And that format has been very, very successful as a way for iron to sharpen iron as we create communities within the community and people can come together and just bounce ideas and best practices and so forth. So one of our first conversations, Michael, was about creating a new community that's really focused on incrementality and helping brands and sellers scale on Walmart.com. We're super excited to get that started, but talk a little bit about your vision for that community and sort of what the first conversations might look like.
Yeah. So I think for the community and what we're trying to really do, I think it's really, the platform's is growing so fast. There's so much changes happening. And what we really want to focus on is like, I think, in other communities, other platforms, there's a lot more content out there. And I think with what Walmart is, there's a lot of information that's people don't have right now, but also that's constantly changing. And I think when brands address Walmart, and what I kind of want to help with kind of this series is really help there's so many moving pieces. Understand based on your brand goals, understand which things and which initiatives it makes sense to invest in and how those are going to impact, incrementally like your overall business, right? And I think, as it comes down back to the focus topic, like especially with marketplace, like there's all these features launching with Walmart Connect, there's all these different placements launching, there's all these different initiatives. You're going to get sold all these different types of things. And I think the beauty is like from really successful sellers on these channels, they take the right things that have the right impact for them. They package them together, and by doing all those right things, they have a really successful outcome. But if they focus on everything, then it's not like a really good recipe, so to say. So I think what I want to really be able to help with is like understanding the different programs Walmart has, understanding the impacts they have, what types of scenarios they can make sense or not make sense. And from there, brands could have a better understanding of which ones they should look more into to incorporating into their strategy and like their own recipe, which will lead to incrementality. And I think when you're an established brand on the platform, or you're a brand starting to grow on the platform, it's really important to understand, to create that recipe of like what you're going to start doing. And for a brand that's already on the platform and looking to protect their positioning and grow, there's going to be a different recipe than the recipe of the brand who's just starting. But there's all these options available. And I think it's really important to understand what they are and how you could best leverage them.
Yeah. One of the things that I love so much about this Walmart ecosystem within Northwest Arkansas is just the amount of openness, the willingness on the part of non-competing brands and sellers to share ideas and insight and best practices with one another. And I think that's such a huge opportunity with this new community that you're creating to bring those brands and sellers together to sort of learn from one another. And a rising tide lifts all ships, and it really is all about creating a healthy, strong, growing platform at Walmart. And for what reasons are you really the most optimistic? This is January of 2024, coming out of a great big holiday season, great big boom in business online. What reasons do you have for being optimistic about this year ahead?
I think a few reasons to be optimistic. I think there's so the platform's environment has been maturing so much, and I think programs that have been built out are starting to really solidify a lot more. So there's by leveraging the right programs, there's so much scale that's available. I think I think there's so much being invested in growth on the platform. So I think that's really exciting. And I think just this year is where you're going to start seeing a lot of really, really strong assortment being brought on, and just so much growth opportunity within the marketplace and just the environment in general. So I think there's just a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah. So two more questions. One more sort of a negative twist on that question that I just asked you, but where are brands and sellers at the greatest risk of falling behind? In what ways are they missing out on opportunities, or maybe investing in things that they don't understand, or missing out on things that they ought to be spending more time learning about?
So I think the easiest, the biggest one, there's a lot of smaller ones, but the one that has the biggest impact is Walmart Connect. And why I say that is, it used to be if you're a top item, you rank in top positioning, right? So you never had to spend anything to really maintain that. And so your pricing and your retails are based on that. Now you could be the top item and you don't show because of all the sponsored spots that are there. So I think, so getting those brands to invest in building up that traffic is a lot of times not feasible when these other kind of sellers who are more marketplace driven, and that's, they understand the opportunity of advertising and they're baking a lot of that in. So I think it's also easy to go down the road of spending too much with advertising and eroding all your margin. So I think the biggest thing is, as more and more placements become available, so much more of the platform is going to be so much centered around advertising. So it's really understanding where do you just maintain organic positioning, and what do you do to make sure you always do the best you can on organic positioning? Because if you're not, and you always have to substitute with advertising, it's going to not be feasible. So you want to make what you could do in that way, and then what's the best leverages for Connect? There's so much power there if you use it in the right way and you don't kind of erode all your margins. So I think it's a lot about there's going to be way more programs coming out within Walmart Connect, and there's so much advantages to it, but just understanding how to leverage it.
Yeah. We hear from so many brand new brands and sellers that are looking for advice on how to get started with Walmart.com. And the advice I give every single time is get help. Don't waste your time and money trying to figure out all of this on your own when there are people and companies like yours that have the ability to leverage the successes and failures and everything that you've invested to sort of stay ahead of things in order to be able to make smart moves on the front side. What other advice would you give to a brand new brand and seller that's really looking to grow their business on Walmart?
Yeah, I think it's get really educated on what's going on the consumer side and on the seller side. And really that is be really educated on the programs that come out, the betas that come out on the seller side or on the 1P side. Be very aware of what those stuff are, because there's a lot of different ones that plug into your business in a strong way. And then on the consumer side, be very understanding of what's going on in the different shelves, what type of competition's coming on board, what are customers seeing, what type of retails are they seeing, what type of products, what type of value, how the shelves are split up, how search is starting to change on Walmart. Be very and if you have actually really good pulse on it, and you stay really educated on it, then you're just going to make much better decisions for where you invest your dollars, where you invest your time, your resources, and all that.
Yeah. Michael, I know you've got a lot to get done today. I know you said you've been up since 4 o'clock this morning, writing proposals and so forth. So congratulations on the success of your business. Congratulations to you and to your team. And it's been fun for me spending this time getting to know you a little bit better. I would encourage anyone interested in learning more about Michael Lebhar and SellCord. You can watch his capabilities presentation on our website under the tab called Conversation Starters. You can also go to sellcord.com. Michael's very easy to find on LinkedIn. Thank you so much, Michael. Appreciate you making the time. Best to you and your team, and look forward to talking with you again soon.
Thanks for having me.